back to Sunrise Daily. Just before we go on to the next item, we've got a question here from Egwanda who says, if corruption is reduced, we have good roads, hospitals, education, jobs, don't you think the agitation will die down?
Which agitation now?
In terms of us clamoring so much for national order.
No, because national order creates a relationship of people to processes. But when there is no national order, then it is nobody's money. A lot of the stealing takes place because the guy stealing does not connect the stealing to the poverty of his people. It's too remote. I'm not saying it's only in Abuja, but I mean, I speak generally. So if work is not assigned, it belongs to nobody. So corruption is actually a byproduct of a lack of national order. So if there's a national order, we agree. Let me just say, for instance, we agree that there will be governors for the 6 geopolitical zones. He will be more interested in the resources he generates. If it is in the southeast where I come from, he'll be interested in coal, and he'll be interested in plowing the money back. So my thesis, my submission, my proposition is that a national order will reduce corruption, not the other way around, even though corruption is important. Okay,
one other matter which also dots in the polity happens to be this hue and cry about the qualification of the APC presidential candidate. Something is unnecessary, he's eminently qualified. What do you think?
I mean, I was confused because I saw conflicting stories on your channel, the newspapers. So I said, you know what I should do? What a lawyer does is to seek direct evidence. So I sought direct evidence. So I have General Buhari's forms in my hands, not here. And I read it. And I read past nomination forms, the CF, candidate form 001. This one is different. It has a new section titled Produce Evidence of Qualification. So this is section 131 with the 4 parts. So in my view, General Buhari correctly filled the first 3. The challenge is in the 4th one, which talks about to be qualified, you need to have school certificate or its equivalent. Section 318 of the Constitution defines school certificate to include primary, secondary, and all that. Then the Electoral Act expands on Section 131 in the shape of Section 31 of the Electoral Act. The form is a subsidiary document, which is law made pursuant to Section 31 of the Electoral Act. So that's the scheme. He did not fill his academic qualifications, so it is unverified. If you go to court and say that you have a claim against somebody for 100 million, if you do not prove it, you lose. So without wanting to be too specific, I do feel that the form has been wrongly filled. And I saw in the papers yesterday that someone has gone to court. But I think I had wished that the form had been properly filled so that that distraction will not be there. The last thing we want is for General Buhari to be disqualified on the basis of non-completion of his form. But the truth is, he did not complete his form. He put in an affidavit that says, my documents are with the military. That is non-compliance. So technically speaking, General Buhari has not completed his form correctly.
Well, you think that is a distraction? Because it would seem definitely it's an issue for the party. We did hear the PDP say very clearly through its media campaign man that General Buhari as a person is going to be an issue for them in these elections. And it would seem that the same would also go for the APC as well, from the kind of utterances that we've heard from their party as well, at least members of that particular party, even not necessarily from the aspirants themselves or the candidates. Do you really think that it should occupy so much space as it has in the last couple of weeks?
What now?
This issue of certificates or
if you're not qualified, you're not qualified. It's a big issue. It's a big issue. But what I'm saying about distraction is that I had wished that it was properly filled. When I ran for NBA president, I took time when I determined to run 1 year. I kept returning to it because I know that if disqualified, that's it. I have a lawyer in my office who ran for national treasurer. When they opened the nomination forms, she was disqualified. When I was president, the outgoing president, in conjunction with the general secretary and the vice and first vice of the MBA, constitutes the screening committee.
What about INEC's role in this? INEC has said that they do not have the
No,
powers
they have
to
no
do
powers. They have no
anything. Would
powers.
you advocate for more powers for them?
No, I
because
wouldn't advocate.
this could have been solved at the level of INEC.
No. INEC would be seen as partial. It's best for INEC not to get into that. Remember when INEC disqualified Atiku Abubakar? The Supreme Court overruled it, and I think correctly. I'd rather that INEC did not. But what I would say is if INEC thought that a person's form was incomplete, they might then write to the person or not publish the nomination form.
But they'll be going against the Electoral Act, which says they're supposed to publish it
But
in
if
the
you-
constituency where the person is.
But it is
vying.
assumed that you have filled it properly. If you don't fill it properly, then you have no form.
So they cannot publish whatever the person has filled.
If you do not publish it properly, if you do not fill it properly, that's my view. If you do not fill a form properly, in accordance with INEC's regulations, then you haven't filled the form.
Let's quickly come to the courts. I mean, you're aware that judiciary workers are on strike. They're asking for autonomy as a result of a court judgment that you were able to secure from the Federal High Court. What is your take on the current strike action, and how do you think it can be implemented, considering that state governments are saying that it's not what the judiciary workers are thinking, it doesn't work that way?
Well, it doesn't work that way. The Constitution says that the judiciary should be self-funding. So what does the executive mean by that? They get funded, by appropriating funds to themselves. So all they need to do is to look at Section 88 of the Constitution and pay monies over to the NJC.
No, they're saying
Yes.
that, the NJC, beg your pardon, the courts are asking for their monies up front.
That's what the law says.
They're saying that they do not get the monies up front. The monies have to be earned first before they can actually begin to allocate.
Amend the Constitution.
To do what?
But you have to obey the Constitution. If the government feels that it doesn't have the resources to pay the money upfront, then amend the Constitution, because the Constitution states clearly that money standing to the credit of the judiciary has appropriated will be paid over to them in one bulk. That's what it says. So if there's a challenge with that, this national conference would have been a good opportunity to put the point across.
How do you see this getting resolved? Because if that is the case, if you're saying that we have to wait for an amendment of the Constitution before we can solve this, it would mean that we might be there forever.
I didn't say that. I'm just saying they should obey the Constitution. The executive should obey the Constitution. I was on the NJC, and on the NJC, I told the then CJN that I couldn't sit here and tolerate Mr. Okonjo-Iweala giving statutory envelopes to the judiciary at her discretion, because that's not what the Constitution provided. It was when the NJC was not strong on the point that I went to court, and I'm happy I won. So obey the Constitution, because that's the law of the land.
Okay, let's end with this certificate matter which you were talking about a moment ago. This is how it has always been. It's always contested that way. So don't you think
Too
people
bad.
will
Now it's a problem.
But what's the function of the affidavit which was submitted then?
The affidavit is not part of the requirements. The affidavit he submitted said, my papers are with the military record people.
What about the War College certification which is being circulated? Can that pass as an equivalent?
No. First of all, we have to understand what the law says. The law says, Chamberlain, authenticate that you work in channels. I see your face every day. You come to my office and they say, oh, Chamberlain is out there. But you are required to authenticate. It's a very important point. You don't authenticate it. So, Olisa Agbakoba, I went to 16 primary schools, CKC, University of Nigeria, London School of Economics. I say that to Solai. But Solai says, authenticate it. And I can only authenticate it by providing the certificates. So we start by saying the certificates are not there. Then we conclude by saying, what will the courts make of it?
All right, Mr. Olisa Agbakoba, Senior Advocate of Nigeria and a legal practitioner, thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you.